Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel Why Not Daily Spoiler. DNA earthquake. Jack uncovers a shocking Newman connection.
No more lies. Jack's blood test reveals Matt's true mother. Hope Newman. DNA nightmare. Jack Abbott holds one as if it were the final link connecting a life he believed he knew. He is in his office at Chancellor Winters, with Genoa City's skyline as a jagged row of lights behind him. The clip trembles just like his hands do. The clip is an afterthought, the last item that held Matt's file together before it was moved, tampered with, and whispered about. For months, the Abbotts and Newmans have engaged in a slow, venomous chess game. Corporate takeovers, romantic betrayals, old wounds are opened and salted. Matt Abbott has been a quiet fulcrum, with his calm smiles and the odd, obstinate echo of Jack. Everyone loved Matt because he appeared to be steady. Jack had always wanted to protect Matt, his son. Matt served as a link between two opposing factions in the planet, until a solitary message from a stranger arrives in Jack's mailbox, an unsigned hospital lab slip with a test number that only makes sense if you know where to look. Jack knows where to search. He makes a call to Devin. "Pull the lab chain," he adds with a gravelly voice. "Who administered this test? Who sent it?" Devin, loyal and keen, asks questions into the night. He checks lab results, emails, and call logs. He brings out the paperwork containing Matt's birth certificate. He dials the number and locates the lab, a modest private facility in the city suburbs. The slide is real. The test exists. Jack's chest becomes cold throughout the commute home. He recalls Matt sleeping on a friend's couch on one more wintry night, and how his son's laughter used to fill the house. He recalls Hope Newman, an ex-model turned philanthropist who has remained a presence. Remote, dazzling, and untouchable. Hope is Nick Newman's estranged daughter, and everyone knows about the Newman connection. She can be sheltered, naive, and heartbreakingly serious when the mood strikes. She is also married to a man who adores her, but betrays her in subtle, quiet ways. Jack has questions. He's always had questions. He has never been a man who would quit asking them. The test is blood testing that was originally designed for a paternity check, but someone failed to follow the procedure. The vial has been logged, but the chain of custody is compromised. If the figures in the lab were careful, no one would know. However, the stranger who mailed the slip wanted the chain severed. The stranger wanted someone like Jack to pursue it. "Run it again," Jack instructs. "Order it again from our private lab." This time, there is a chain of custody. There are no leaks, no drama. Devin begins the procedure discreetly, but the law and ethics need notice, because Matt is an adult. Someone needs to sign. Jack realizes there is a solution. If there is suspicion of fraud or Matt consents, the test can be performed in a clinical setting. Jack chooses a different course. When it comes to personal matters, he does what he has always done. He relies on those who love him. He describes Ashley as stable and iron-willed. "Bring Matt into the clinic," he says without explanation. She knows less about the slip and more about Jack's rage than anyone else. "Tell him it's a routine. Tell him it is for medical records." Ashley agrees, not because she believes, but because when Jack requires you to lie on his behalf, the only moral option is practical. Matt is hesitant in the petty, juvenile manner that men in their 20s are hesitant. He dislikes the clinical odor of hospitals, the prying, and the feeling that someone wants to reduce you to data points. Nonetheless, he trusts Jack. He trusts the man who taught him to rise and pull himself up. He approaches, rolling his coat in his hands like a talisman. Hope runs into him in the clinic by mistake. She had come in for a Newman Foundation physician-led donor drive, which he describes as community outreach. She notices Matt in the waiting room, and time shifts. Hope's heart skips, having grown accustomed to polite rhythms and social expectations. She recognizes him, not as the Abbott son, but as the man who formerly served on the same charity committee, carried a baby at a luncheon, and laughed about how complicated familial ties can be in Genoa City. "Matt." Her voice is the inquiry that opens doors. Their discourse is brief, consisting primarily of social graces, a series of complicit smiles. Hope's eyes, however, are bathed in a private alarm. Something about Matt, The cadence of a chuckle, the lilt of a phrase Jack had taught him, evokes a memory she can't place. The tiniest tremor indicates there is more. The exam is performed using clinical distance and private hands. Blood is drawn, sealed, and catalogued. Jack watches through a glass partition, feeling both ancient shame and modern fear. He prays like a man who has lost track of his own story, a modest, uncommon plea to whatever gods scowl on the rooftops of Genoa City. 3 days later, the results appear on Jack's desk as a verdict. The lab prints are clinical and neat. There's no drama in the letters, just numbers and a certificate certifying a match. 99.999% chance of pregnancy. Jack reads. He rereads. His throat feels dry. For a long, hefty minute, he just breathes. The word in the middle of the queue was not what he expected. It's a name. I Hope Newman. He drove to the Newman estate without thinking. The winter night presses against the limo windows like a frigid hand. He practices an explanation and then tears it up because there is no rehearsing for this. If what he has in his palm is genuine, every lie, omission, and carefully crafted fabrication that has held Matt together begins to fall apart. Hope is in the conservatory at the Newman house, watering orchids, a peaceful ritual in her life of shifting responsibilities. She barely notices Jack enter until he talks. Hope, Jack says. The name is tiny, courteous, and complete. She glances up. Her face depicts a life full of scandal and forgiveness. Jack, she says cautiously, what brought you here? He lifts the paper as if it were a confession. We ran a paternity test, he says. For Matt. Hope's expression does not change at first. She's the type of woman who maintains a cool exterior. Then, like a patient but inevitable tide, surprise crested and sank into terror. Matt Abbott. She echoes. Are you sure? Yes. Jack places the slip on the table between them. He studies her, as if the way her eyes flicker will reveal the truth. 99.999% maternity. The world tilts for two people. Hope's thoughts return to a summer she can still smell, rather than decades of forgotten affairs. Before she married into the public glare, before there was a predictable existence, before rehearsal dinners and carefully calibrated PR statements, she recalls a man who arrived at a charity event with a hawk's charm and a quick chuckle. A night with insufficient lighting. A moment of vulnerability. She realized that she, too, could get swept up. She never spoke. She buried the memory, like a pressed flower. Hope has always been sensible about these issues. She made decisions and accepted the consequences. But the idea that a son she never knew existed, living in Jack Abbott's arms, is an earthquake. What do you mean? She whispers. How is this possible? Jack tells her the narrative he's been keeping from the rest of the family. A lab slip, a corrupted chain, and an anonymous mailer. He omits the name of the stranger who sent the slip because he believes it is safer. Hope hears him, and it's as if someone flipped on the lights in a dusty room. The memories of a long-ago kiss and the ephemeral warmth of a night she believed she'd accepted come flooding back. Matt, she admits finally. I remember him. When he was a newborn. At a fundraiser. Do you remember? Jack is incredulous. Hope, you're the only one who remembers. Maybe because I was the only one who would have noticed, she admits gently. I recall being alone after the summer. I remember wondering, perhaps someone else was involved throughout those months. Maybe it was just impossible. Jack nods. He recalls all of the chats he avoided with Matt in order to spare him suffering. But the reality is, Jack always believed he was protecting himself. For each of them, the next step is disastrous and unavoidable. The conversation with Matt. They discover him at the Abbott compound, partly awake and in a bathrobe, stirring coffee like a man attempting to time the sunrise. He expects the usual, a board meeting, supper, and a few jokes. Instead, he receives a confession encased in clinical reports. Matt, Jack says, and the sound of his voice causes Matt to look up with the nonchalant curiosity of someone who has never been told that his life is a mystery. We did a paternity test, Jack explains. I thought you should know. Matt raises his eyebrows in a query. There's nothing wrong, right? He jokes. He prepares for a story on family history or medical issues. He is not prepared for this. Hope is now near the chair, a strange presence in Matt's living room, as if a character from another book had entered a scene. The test is placed on the coffee table as proof. As they wait for the numbers to do what they always do, declare and identify, Hope observes Matt with the unease of someone who recognizes a face she has only ever kissed in memory. Matt's first words are a simple, bewildered, "What?" Jack's explanation is measured and ineffective at the same time. He stumbles where he normally composes. The test shows it suggests, "Hope, you are listed as the biological mother." Matt laughs with a brief, skeptical sound. "That's impossible," he says. "My mother." "Your legal mother is Tracy," Jack explains. He can see Matt's face tense. "We didn't have a proper." Well, this test demonstrates something else. Silence fills the room like a third chair. "So you think Hope is my mother?" Matt asks. There's wonder in it, the type of innocent hope that has kept him going his entire life. Hope moves forward. She moves as if she is tasting the words she will speak later. "Matt," she announces, "I'm not sure how to convey it right now, but years ago, I was not a public figure. I knew someone who could have influenced your life." Matt glances from Hope to Jack, feeling the chilly fingers of a story reshaping his past. He sees the proof, the test, and the expressions on their faces. He experiences both betrayal and relief, like a paradox at the center of a ripped jumper. However, a paternity test is only as accurate as the circumstances surrounding it. There are questions about who sent the slip. Why was the chain of custody broken? Who purposefully instilled the idea that Hope could be his mother? Secrets are currency in Genoa City. Someone purchased a rumor and paid with a falsehood. Nick Newman learns the news ahead of the rest of the city. Victor Newman hears before his son, because he always does, and the Newmans and Abbotts are connected via a network of whispers. Victor arrives, brow raised like a no-nonsense gate, his rage restrained in a fitted suit. "This is a nightmare," he states plainly. If this is true, Hope's life will be dragged through muck. If it's fake, someone is attempting to incite a war. "Then find them," Jack demands. "Which is why we need to prove the chain was compromised." They prove it. Details emerge. The lab assistant who documented the original test is missing a week's salary, and the individual who mailed the slip is tracked down to a P.O. box registered with a shell firm. Someone has been playing a hazardous game. The inquiry reveals more than just corruption. It reveals motivation. Phyllis Summers, who is always looking for ways to exert control, appears to be overly quick to diagnose motives. "Imagine the power," she says quietly to a confidant. "If you reveal a Newman secret, you will destabilize the entire house. And if it's true, the Newman fortune may crumble." Sharon watches, heartbroken. She had raised Hope, not always properly, but with the stability that only mothers can provide. She cannot imagine Hope may have a secret child out there. "Hope is honest," she says. "She would have told me." The city is divided into 3 camps, Team Abbott, Team Newman, and Team Truth, with a fourth, more dangerous side, Team Chaos. Social media streams light up. Lawyers detect opportunities. Columnists transform $10 stories into a $100 crisis. Hope's Foundation cancels an event. 3 years ago, newspapers printed photographs of Matt laughing at a picnic. Every photograph has the potential to show something, even if it doesn't. Matt is the center of the storm. He feels betrayed by the people who have surrounded him with silence. He is relieved and curious, but also angry that anyone would use his family as a pawn. "What if I don't want this?" he asks one night, his voice rough. "What if this is who I am, and DNA doesn't explain it?" Jack, tired, sits next to him and explains what fathers do when the world is a machine, and they must repair parts with their hands. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do," Jack explains. "But you deserve the truth, child. You are entitled to select what that fact implies." So Matt decides to meet Hope properly, not as a flashback or a stolen echo from a forgotten summer, but as a genuine discourse. They sat in a bright chamber on the Newman estate, coffee forgotten, hands clasped like a tentative bridge. Hope shares the narrative she kept hidden because it was ashamed, little, and inappropriate for the life she subsequently chose. A summer of blunders, an impulsive romance, and a concern that parenthood might jeopardize the clean slate she'd fought so hard to establish. She claims she never told because she felt she had no right to bother the child with the information, because secrets are often developed out of a desire to protect. Matt listens, not always forgiving and not always condemning. He hears a voice that is honest enough to admit error. He sees in Hope a humanity he hasn't allowed himself to see before. The woman on the news isn't the same woman who tripped over the city's edge. He sees Jack as a man who has been attempting to protect him in his own imperfect way. The final performance is public. At a charity banquet meant to demonstrate cooperation among the city's powerful, a villain emerges. The person behind the sent slip, exposed by an anonymous touch on a laptop, is not who anyone expected. It's a local fixer with ties to a rival firm. Someone who wanted to destabilize the Abbott-Newman alliance for financial reasons. He predicted that a scandal would disrupt both companies. He had no idea he was lighting a fuse that would lead to a human discovery. The exposé depicts the mailer's confession. He started the test chain, mailed the slip, and attempted to harvest havoc. However, the DNA is not his to control. The exam is real. The outcome stands. When Hope takes the podium that night, she is not dressed like a lady prepared for damage control. She is a woman claiming the truth. I never meant to step into someone's life and cause them pain, she adds bluntly. Cameras flash with staccato applause. If the results of these tests are correct, I have a son I did not know about. There are decisions I took that had consequences. I apologize for the silence. I'm here now to confront it. Matt stood among the crowd, light-headed. When they revealed the outcome 3 weeks ago, his life was fractured into 1,000 possibilities. With Hope's voice solid and public, some of the shards are starting to stick together again. What happens now? Someone in the press shouts. You build something, Jack says to Matt later gently. You build it by intent, not by accident. Hope and Matt stroll out into the night, the city's skyscrapers echoing behind them. People will gossip, litigate, and profit from the drama. That is Genoa City's nature. But beyond the noise, a modest, calmer truth has emerged. Families are sometimes built on apologies, late-night chats, and open confessions. They are made up of simple decisions. To forgive, to be honest, to meet the person you unintentionally co-created and ask what they require. Jack returns home and sits in the study, where the paper clip that uncovered a life remains. He recalls all the falsehoods he told himself to protect the youngster he loved like a son. He remembers Hope's eyes, the expression of a woman who had made a decision and now had to live with the consequences. He thinks of Matt, who is both foreign and familiar. There is anguish and relief. The DNA nightmare, a term that the tabloids will use for weeks, is exactly that, a nightmare. However, the ending is not the nightmare itself, but rather the awakening that follows it. We'll need therapy, Jack says to Devon, who has become the quietest and most powerful ally. Devon laughs, since the only constant in Genoa City is that no one escapes alone. And there are consequences. Phyllis, who is always plotting, takes a step back because her plan failed. Victor grumbles and adjusts his tie. Whether or not the Newmans keep their entire fortune, he understands that loyalty is the only coin that matters anymore. Sharon questions everything she thought she knew about motherhood. Nick, ever the ambivalent son, supports Hope with a flawed unity of a father who understands that fatherhood and parenthood are not the same thing. Matt, meanwhile, learns to see his life as a chance, however fleeting, to become who he wants to be. In a city where identity is cash and secrets are the most hazardous form of debt, the most radical thing anyone can do is be truthful. Hope and Matt arrange another meeting. This time, no exams, no reporters, and no lawyers. A simple sandwich in the park, the kind of meal that generations of families have used to sew truth into cloth. Would you want to be my mother? Hope finally asks, in the words of those who prefer to be plain and genuine. Matt glances at her in the same way that a man looks into the future, with anxiety, curiosity, and something like hunger. I want someone who chooses to show up, he tells me. I'm looking for someone who tries. Give me that, and we can figure out the rest. She agrees. They both understand that it will not reverse the years. But in Genoa City, where life is a series of edits and replays, accepting the present and making the best of it can be the most daring act. Jack watches from across the park bench. He's older, perhaps, but clearer. No more falsehoods. That's what the paper clip said the day it triggered the avalanche. The avalanche shattered things. It also cleansed them. In the aftermath, what remains is decision rather than drama. And for the first time in a long time, hope, a word that had previously just been a Newman surname, is the most honest thing Jack can feel about his son.